sunshine. It's 12 in the afternoon.
Oh wow, it's amazing.
And I've been waiting to talk to you since 2007.
Really?
Ever since I received Prodigal Son. I think it was Betsy Brown who sent it to me.
Yeah, Betsy. Yeah, my publicist. Yeah.
Yep. And okay, I've been spinning a lot of your music, and I think it's time my listeners heard what you have to say about your music.
Okay.
And I'd like to start with maybe a little bit about yourself. You were born in the New York area.
Yes, I was born in across from Manhattan. There's a town called Bayonne. It's in the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
We're right outside of New York City.
And you spent most of your growing years out there.
Yes, I grew up there. I was born there, grew up there. I came to New York City in 1960s. I started hanging out over here. I moved over here in about 1975.
Now I would say that your roots and influences in music go back all the way to your childhood, obviously.
Excuse me, say that again?
Your influences in music go back all the way to your childhood.
Oh yeah, sure enough, yeah. Like I grew up in the '50s, so it was a lot of the real deal going on then,
Absolutely, yeah.
And my mother influenced me by keeping me off the street, by making me stay in the house after school and spin records for her, So she would throw a lot of parties. And I would be like spinning the records, not so much as a DJ, but just as someone to keep the party music going,
Yeah. So I presume it must have been more of R&B and the blues.
Really? It was more blues. My father listened to a lot of jazz, but my mother was strictly like blues and some of the R&B hits. We used to call it the hit parade.
Yeah. And which are the bluesmen or women that influenced you the most at that time?
Well, I can remember in those days it was my mother's #1 records, and she had like 78s, these real hard plastic records, man. They were 78s, and Billie Holiday was like the #1. That's what she would constantly be playing and singing to herself. And then we had Muddy Waters and Jimmy Reed mostly. Jimmy Reed.
And when did you decide to become a musician?
Well, it's funny because for some kind of reason, I just loved looking at guitar pictures, And when I heard some of the songs that my mother had, the guitar sounds were like more what got me off. I wasn't interested in really becoming a musician. I just really dug the sound, like the sounds of. Just for an instance, there was guitar players back in those days. Jimmy Reed, there was something about his sound, and Muddy Waters' sound. There was something about his guitar sound that really, would really, wig me out, But it wasn't until I was watching television and I saw the Rolling Stones, that I wanted to be a musician.
And that must have been around the mid to late 60s?
Yeah, when 65, I would say. When there was a show called Ed Sullivan Show, they came on. And this is when, after the Beatles had just got here. The first band I can remember seeing where I started becoming really interested in playing with other people was the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and the Dave Clark Five. You know, they were like they used to have like all in the media that was like who's better, the Dave Clark Five or the Beatles? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it was who's better, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones? You know, but what really got me involved was the Stones music. I understood more because those were the records that my mother had by Muddy Waters. They were playing, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Especially their debut album.
Yeah, right. Like with Little Red Rooster on there, and I'm a King Bee. All those songs were like what I was playing, but by the real artists, you know.
And when did you have your first band?
My first band that I can honestly say was in grammar school. I think I might have been in the sixth grade. Well, you know what? When we saw the Stones on the Ed Sullivan Show, like that next week, all the parents that could afford it went out and got their kids guitar lessons, and were buying them guitars and amplifiers. And after school, we would go over each other's houses and exchange ideas. Who learned the first chord from their lessons, or the teachers would show it to everybody in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's when the band started happening, because once you learned, your first chord, then you learned another chord and another chord, and then you could put together a song. So that's when people started like practicing in the cellars. Nobody went out. Nobody like was hanging out on the streets getting into trouble. Everybody was down in the cellar practicing, and learning these songs off the records. Like every week a record would come out, like whatever was in the top 10, like the Stones or the Yardbirds. They had a song out, "I'm a Man." Everybody wanted to learn that, and we would teach it to each other, and then we'd practice. We'd practice in the basements with those that had equipment, and we would borrow each other's equipment and spend a day with it. And I mean, it was like madness, man. And then all these bands were coming over from England. It was the British blues invasion.
That's right.
So we really were like out of our minds, and then people started growing their hair long, and we had skinny ties and boots with like really high heels, and
Yeah.
it was pretty nuts.
And it was around that time that you met Jimmy Reed.
Yeah, it was around the same time. It was grammar school, going into high school. My father had a restaurant, and I was working in my old man's restaurant, and I had to deliver. My job was to deliver the sodas to all the neighborhood bars in the neighborhood. So he told me one day to bring these over there. They're having a show in this place called Max's, which was a sort of like a Hammond organ jazz kind of live entertainment place, and blues. And so I'm delivering the soda, divvying it out, and as I hear this music in the back room, in the dining area, and there was a guy back there setting his equipment up, and he was supposed to play there that night. And it turns out he was Jimmy Reed. And him and his wife, they were, setting this stuff up and going over some songs I guess they were going to play that evening. And there was nobody back there but me and them, And he was really pretty drunk, to be honest with you. And he was working on some song, and I said, "Well, I forgot about what I had to do, man. I forgot about the restaurant, the soda, and I'm watching this guy, like, and the time is going by, man. And I finally got up to enough courage to ask him what was he doing with the guitar, and he says this is an A bar chord, and he put my hands on his guitar to show me how to position them. I had no clue, and it was the first time I ever saw that, and I had a guitar at home, but I never played it. it was just like sit in the corner, and I used to put my army men on there and whatever, you know, that was their boat, you know. And so when he put that on there, and he said, "This is an A bar chord," and my fingers are on the neck, and he strummed the guitar, and it made such a beautiful sound. I ran home, left all the sodas there and everything. I ran all the way back to my apartment, and I tried to work it out on my guitar, you know. And my old man, he's saying, "Where are you?" I completely just like forgot everything, and that's when I knew that, you know, something I had to do.
That's right.
And I couldn't get no sound because my guitar wasn't even in tune. And it was, you know, my mother had people come over on these parties where I spin records, and some of them would play guitar, but they were playing guitar in open tuning.
That's right. Yeah.
So like the bar chord thing that he showed me didn't work. So that's when I convinced my mother to let me go and get some lessons. But we didn't have the money for that, you know.
Yeah.
But this one guy that was going to the same church that we went to, he had a music school. His name was Frank DeLeo, and he had a school, and he worked it out with my mother that for like $6 a half hour, he would teach me like once a week, and that's when I learned how to tune the guitar, like everybody, you know, standard tuning. But I still really didn't play it. I learned how to tune it, but my mission was to find out how to play it. So I would constantly be going to whoever had a band in the neighborhood, or whoever was playing in these bars. I would some kind of way find a way to get in there and watch them play, you know, and that's how it all